Imagine waking up to the news reports of another attack nearby. For me, that was every day for 4 years while living in a conflict zone north of India. The simple act of going to school every day was a victory, a defiance act, a small sense of normalcy in an otherwise very chaotic world. Soon after that, I moved away to a different city with my parents and never thought about it. It wasn't actually until university when I came here and I met others who had lived through similar experiences but on a much larger level that I realized survival for most of us isn't the end of the story. It is actually the beginning of a much harder battle. Survival in this day and age is usually celebrated as the ultimate triumph. We see images of resilience and hear stories of courage from all those around us. But there are news articles and media reports and headlights and spotlines, all while the people are still in the conflict zone. But the minute they're airlifted out of there and into safety, we breathe a sigh of relief, we turn our back, and we never think about it again. And in doing so, we are leaving them to rebuild their lives in the shadows. Changing the narrative is very important here. When I came to university 4 years ago, not only did I come to a new land, but I also left behind my only support system. I was amongst peers and fellow international students who did not share the same experiences and hence did not have the same understanding. And that naturally led me to feel lost, unheard, alone, and misunderstood. What I realized was if I was feeling such heavy emotions with such a brief encounter with conflict, that too from a safe space, imagine what it would have been like for people who lived their entire life in war zones. Through conversations with others at my university, I soon realized that even though the severity of our experiences differed, there was a shared gap, lack of mental health resources and community understanding. To put it all into perspective for you, let me paint a picture. Imagine moving to a new country at the age of 45. Everything that you knew about life, the language, the culture, the norms, do's and don'ts, everyday nuances, are now considered irrelevant. You have to relearn everything about life from the scratch, the most basic of things, where to take the bus from, what side of the road to walk on, and what is the silly language everybody keeps speaking. We all learn these too, but while we're learning, we are young. And while we are learning, the world around us is patient, nurturing, and forgiving. But now go back to the picture I painted. These people are 45-year-olds. They are treated like 45-year-old adults, and they're expected to act like 45-year-old adults, all while carrying the weight of survival. They're constantly thinking about the family they brought with them, the family that they left behind, and the family that they lost on their way to survival. Bills still need to be paid, and children still need to be fed. Expecting somebody to rebuild under these circumstances is not fair, and it is definitely not sustainable. Survival is about the mere act of staying alive, whereas thriving is about reclaiming identity, purpose, and belonging. Some survivors are doing this despite incredible odds. For example, there's this program in Kenya that trains refugees in entrepreneurial skills and gives them microloans to start off businesses. These families that were once dependent on aid are today employing so many others and creating livelihoods. This calls out to us and asks us to shift our focus and change our perspective. Survivors don't just need to survive, they need tools to rebuild their lives. They need mentorship programs, they need community support, they need community understanding, and most of all, they need our understanding. In doing so, there are a lot of questions that we might ask ourselves. How do we do this? I would like to pause here and take a second. What does it feel like for you to be welcomed in a new community? For some of us, it might be a friendly face showing us around office on a new day at work. For others, it might mean a friendly face showing up and helping us when we're moving to a new neighborhood with the phone numbers of a local carpenter or the local electrician. These gestures might seem small, but they're the foundation of belonging. A friendly smile, a warm hello can do wonders. I identified 3 different levels that we can make this work at. The individual level. Start with where you are. Supporting local organizations that do run events for such programs does not always have to mean donating money. It can also mean donating time, donating expertise, and just even your kindness. Organizing events does sound daunting, but it doesn't have to be. A simple cultural potluck or a storytelling evening can build bridges and bring people together. Schools and workplaces also play a vital role in this goal. Schools can organize buddy programs where existing students are matched up with newcomers to make the transition into a new education system seamless. Workplaces can have workshops that educate colleagues on diversity and inclusion. When we are taking all of these steps, not only are we helping the survivors, we are creating a community where everybody feels like they belong. And when everybody feels like they belong, we all benefit from the shared resources, the shared experiences, and the stories we all bring. On a community level, communities thrive when they're inclusive. We can do this with incredible odds when we get together and just make people feel like they belong. On a policy level, bigger changes come around when we take the small steps. Policies aren't just always made up in the air. They're influenced by the voices of people like me and you. Advocating for mental health funding, for example, is crucial. Right now, less than 1% of the humanitarian aid goes towards mental health, despite its critical role in recovery. Imagine what were to happen if that number were even to be just doubled. Did you know that 1 in every 5 survivors goes through PTSD, trauma, severe anxiety, and depression for the rest of their lives? That would drastically change if we were to provide them with safe spaces to heal, access to therapy, and trauma support. We need to amplify this voice by reaching out to local representatives or signing petitions or voting for leaders who actually have such inclusive policies in their agenda. And if you're a storyteller, use your platform, use your blog, your voice to create awareness, because awareness is where every change starts. Every email you send, every petition you sign, and every vote you cast sends out a bigger message into the broader system. Mental health recovery for the long term matters. I want you to think of these 3 levels that I just said, the individual, community, and policy, as interconnected. When you help an individual directly, you are indirectly strengthening the community. And when a community is strong, it will push for policy changes. That right there is the ripple effect of one action you took. The challenges I shared with you today might seem overwhelming, but there are also opportunities to make a world where survivors are not just seen as resilient, but they're also seen as neighbors, friends, and colleagues, basically people with extraordinary potential. Now, I want you to imagine this, a world where everybody feels included, a world where a child who fled from conflict grows up feeling safe and valued, a world where a mother starting over at the age of 45 is welcomed with open arms and given the support she needs to rebuild her life, a world where communities thrive and do not see survivors as burdens, but as people contributing towards their shared success. This world isn't a dream. It's possible, and it starts with us. We don't have to have all the answers. Just being where we are and doing what we can speaks volumes. Together, we can rewrite the narrative for survival, and together, we can build a world where thriving is the ultimate triumph. The question isn't whether this change is possible. The question is whether you are ready to take the first step. So I ask you, everybody, will you take that first step with me?